Welcome to Mac Talk, a Middle Tennessee podcast from Mont Haven Arts and Cultural Center in Hendersonville, Tennessee. I'm your announcer, Kennedy Galvin. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at the law firm Spencer Fane, Bone McAllister. Spencer Fane, law, life, and passion.
Thank you, Kennedy, and welcome everyone to Mac Talk. I'm your host, John Pitcher. We like to think of the Mac as a cultural town square where we encourage everyone to be their creative best, and that includes encouraging people to view our art exhibitions. Kennedy, you've been around Mont Haven for a long time, and you've seen a lot of shows here. What's been your favorite Mont Haven art exhibition?
So I actually have a few, I would say. One of my favorite shows was actually the Lyrical Cowboy in 2021. It was sponsored by the Booth Museum down in Cartersville, Georgia. And they brought a bunch of their cowboy artwork, or Western artwork as well, and sculptures. And every piece had a different lyric to go along to it. Mm-hmm. And we had like a playlist of songs.
Yeah,
over
and
the loudspeakers.
It was that music aspect
of all
I think
the
that you really liked.
I did. I really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. It was just, I always have a soft spot for Western kind of artwork as well, with the cowboys and horses and whatnot. It's just fun.
It was different ways of telling a story because, Western songs are all about storytelling.
Exactly.
And the art was really, very narrative in the way it was laid out. It was a really great exhibit. And then
I have always had a soft spot for the student art show. I mean, whenever I was in middle school and high school, whenever this was the Hendersonville Arts Council, I was in the student art shows as well. And whenever I started working here in 2020, that was my first show working here. So ever since then, it's just fun to see every year what the kids come up with.
Mm-hmm. Well, they blow my mind every year too, because they come up with stuff that you wouldn't believe.
Absolutely.
And of course, Kennedy also revealed to me that she won Best in Show.
I did.
When she was in 7th grade.
Yeah. That was a big deal.
That actually impressed me.
And there was
because the kids here in Sumner County are amazing. If you win Best in Show,
pretty big deal.
That's an accomplishment.
And this was also before NOSI was like giving money to students, I would say.
Of course.
And they would hang the artwork with chains from the ceiling.
The timing was just perfect.
But it was a lot of fun. I've always had a lot of fun with that show.
I know. I've always loved the student art show. Well, I have a hard time coming up with just one favorite show myself, but the one that I have to mention first and foremost is 2019's Mastering Clay, which was our very first Picasso exhibit. It was Picasso Ceramics. And for Mont Haven Arts and Cultural Center, which was just founded in 2017, 2 years later, we really had, with that exhibit, a breakout exhibit. Mm-hmm. We had 10,000 people come.
I remember hearing about it before.
Lots and lots of media covering it. We had an exhibition here that was being mentioned in the same breath as like exhibitions at the Frist or the Tennessee State Museum. And it was it was just
the amount of people that walked in and didn't even know that he did ceramics.
Yeah,
was like, it's like every other group,
right?
Like that didn't know that. And
I know, everybody thought he just did his cubism. And one other thing about Picasso, I should also add that we have a Picasso exhibit here now.
We do.
Picasso lithographs. These are on display through November 9th. So just a few more weeks' time, at least as we're recording this podcast now.
About 2 weeks.
Yeah, to get in and see some more Picasso. Another favorite of mine is an exhibit that we debuted here and we actually created here. It's our exhibit. It was from 2021, the summer of 2021. It was our Vietnam Then and Now art exhibition. I think the full title of it was Vietnam, Two Soldiers, Two Artists, Two Journeys, Then and Now. It featured the artwork of two Tennessee artists who were also Vietnam War veterans. It was David Wright, who's an amazing Western art painter, and Chuck Creasy, who is an amazing watercolorist. And the then part of that title, the past, were the sketches that David Wright created of U.S. soldiers, of Vietnamese civilians when he was in country as an observer in Vietnam in 1965. He was in the Army. These are incredibly wonderful, very expressive portraits
Pen and ink too.
Pen and ink. So
Pencil, and then there's a couple watercolor, if I remember correctly.
a few, but it was mostly things that he was really doing in the field. I mean,
Literally
he was
in the field.
looking at these and just creating what he saw. Then with Chuck Creasy. Chuck Creasy was a well-known Nashville area watercolorist, and he's also in the advertising business for many years. During the war, 1968, he was a forward observer for an artillery unit, and he went back to Vietnam to visit with his family 50 years after his service. It was about 2018. And he just traveled the country and did photography, and then from that created these very vivid watercolors of just people and landscapes.
Right.
And and that was the now part of the exhibition. But what was really interesting, and I think kind of set a standard for us with our annual Veterans Art Exhibition, is we have exhibitions that feature the work of former military veterans, or sometimes current, but usually former military veterans who are just expressing themselves in whatever way comes most naturally to them. It doesn't. We have a veterans art show, but it doesn't actually have to be art about war.
Yep.
And this was really a show that was about the healing power of the arts.
Right.
And that became really a big essential part of what we do here with our annual Veterans Art Exhibition. And another important thing about this exhibition was the fact that we created it here, and now it's the first one we started touring.
Yes.
And it's going to Athens State University. It opens on the October 27th and runs there through November 30th. So anyone who still wants to see this exhibition, they can. It's going to be in Alabama. And of course, one other cool thing, and Kenny and I had mentioned this before too, was that we actually brought in a helicopter gunship.
Yep. From that era, it was one of those Vietnam choppers, and that actually brought our artists to the show. Yes. And
that same helicopter was the helicopter you saw in the movie Die Hard.
It was in a couple other movies too.
Yeah, so we had it here. So
we did.
That was pretty awesome in its own right. Well, speaking of favorite art exhibitions, let's go ahead and introduce today's guest. Laura Hutson Hunter probably knows more about art exhibitions in Nashville than anyone else in Middle Tennessee. Laura is the longtime arts editor of the Nashville Scene. The Scene, of course, is the city's primary arts newspaper. Laura has overseen visual arts coverage at the Scene for more than a decade, and she's written some of that publication's most perceptive visual arts stories. In addition to writing and editing, Laura also curates the Scene's adult contemporary art exhibition series. We're excited she's here, and we have a lot of questions for her. Laura Hutson Hunter, welcome to Mac Talk.
Thank you. It's so good to be here, John.
Thank you so much for being here. Tell us a little bit about your job as arts editor at the Nashville Scene. What's a week in the life of Laura Hutson Hunter like?
Oh, wow. That's one of the things that I really love about working at the Nashville Scene is that it's a weekly paper, weekly deadlines. It's new every week. And so, I don't know, earlier today, I interviewed Lovey Olivia, who is an artist based in Houston, who has an exhibit up in Nashville right now that she's working on. I spoke with her, and she's really a lovely artist that I've followed for a while. She's exhibited at the Frist and a lot of different places. Yesterday, I was on a call with Red Grooms.
Oh my goodness, Red Grooms, Carousel fame.
Yes, yeah, of Carousel fame. Another one that will be a good addition if the Scene ever does an old Nashville Encyclopedia Volume 2.
Yes, well, the Scene's already done some good stuff on him.
And he was at David Lusk Gallery in Nashville working on a big mural on the wall. In that gallery, and was able to speak with me. Okay.
So right now you're telling me that your job is pretty exciting because you're getting to do, for a living, talk to people like Red Grooms.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's part of our Nashville art history.
It's varied. I get to speak, and I really, because I've been doing it for a while, I get to be like, I get to experience the inner workings of these artists and the galleries that they're working with, and really have an inside view of everything that's going on. And if I want to write about an artist or want to interview them, they usually will, let me. And so it's varied, I guess, is the long answer to your question of what it is like every week at the scene. Sometimes I'm interviewing a lot of interesting people. Okay. Sometimes I'm writing about, this casket salesman, this casket salesman that I just spoke with for an upcoming issue. His history is in automotive design. The way that someone will get a car and wrap it, so to make it sort of look like Tweety Bird, or cover it in rhinestones or something. He does that with coffins, with caskets. And I was able to speak with him about his process and how he works. And I mean, it is, so yeah, anything that I feel like, any little thread that I want to pull on a topic, there's going to be room in the Nashville scene for a story about that. So that's a real gift.
Yeah, well, and that's unusual enough to actually draw attention, which I guess is something you'd be interested in. And I guess, if fancy funerals were good enough for the pharaoh, I guess they'd be good enough for anybody today, right?
Absolutely.
Wow. Well, of course, a lot of people are going to think it's very glamorous to be the arts editor at the scene, but I imagine there's another G word there too, which is grind.
Oh, that's right.
Because and tell us a little bit about, because it's actually hard work to be really, really good every week. The late great editor of the scene, Jim Ridley, would always comment. People say they want to be great, but don't they realize how hard it is just to be good? But you're under that kind of deadline pressure, and the quality always has to be the scene. It can't be just okay.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it does. And it's a muscle that you have to consistently sort of work as writing with that kind of regularity and with those deadlines. But we have a really strong team, and everything that we write goes through a process of an editorial process where there's, a copy editor, a line editor, proofreader, all of that, the design. So even though it is a grind, as you say, there's a process in place that helps us along.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of the process, I would be interested to know, how does the scene, and how do you as the editor go about choosing the art stories that are going to be in the issue every week? I have artists, I have musicians, I have people ask me that question because they know I've written from time to time for the scene, so they want to know, what do I have to do to get in the scene? And they look at me so intently that I think they're not even trying to make eye contact anymore. They're trying to get into my soul. They're looking into my brain. How do I get into the scene? And if they don't get into the scene, they just figure, the fix is in or something. They get very disappointed or frustrated. But what are you looking for? How does something get into the scene?
Yeah, I mean, well, you had asked me what my work as arts editor is, and I oversee the visual arts coverage, but also the theater and the books, the dance and the performances. I oversee a lot of it, and I depend a lot on our freelancers and our contributors to pitch me ideas. And then I also will sort of scour the calendars as they're coming up of comedy. Zany's has a lot of great shows that are coming up. TPAC always has things happening. Parnassus and the bookshop in East Nashville has book events happening. And so I will look for things that catch my eye that I think are interesting. But if someone comes to me with something that they think deserves coverage, I always ask what the story is, like what is it about this particular idea that you think would grab our readers? Like, what is it that about that is singular, that is interesting, that when people have, print really does matter still. People seeing something, seeing their event or their art, their project in the newspaper and newsprint, it's still kind of a thrill. And so it really does matter. But there's a limited space for that, right? And it's becoming more and more limited, as we all know. And so we really have to be selective and discerning about what we choose. I try and do that as best as I possibly can, but there's always going to be oversights and just things that sort of slip through the cracks. But I do think that most of the time we try and get it right. I don't know.
Well, I'm really glad you brought that up, because I think, this idea that the fix is in, to me, kind of demonstrates that people don't always really know what's going on behind the scenes and how things work. At a place like the Nashville Scene, that is really a writer's newspaper, I think. You have some papers are editor driven and some are really writer driven. And I think the Scene, more than many, is really writer driven. You really do have good writers out there who come up with these ideas and pitch them. And then it's the editor's job to sort of make sure that those ideas are developed properly and then presented properly. But it's really, there is a collaboration, but I know that there's just been such a long tradition going all the way back to the founding editor of Bruce Doby, and then later, like Jim Ridley, that it's a paper for writers. They want good writing in that paper.
Thank you. Yeah, I think so. I think we try to always approach it as a writers first kind of thing. But it really is, the Scene is the only publication that I've ever been on full-time staff at. So I don't have that much else to compare it to, and only also in this time. So you have much more experience in that than I would.
Well,
do you feel?
I don't have more experience. I have different experience.
Experience.
I did a lot of work with daily newspapers.
Right.
And that was very different. That was, and some of them are probably a little bit more editor driven, but they're really, at least in the old days, I date back to the old days when you actually had a press inside your building, and you had to get as an arts writer, in my case a music critic, I had to get my piece done and finished by 10 o'clock so that the editor could get it to the press by 11 so that the trucks could get them out onto the streets by 3 a.m. So I date back that far.
I love
that. And I really miss that. They had big newsrooms. Nothing was remote.
And there
was nothing better than a big newsroom where you would work with some of the most weird, wacky, crazy, but brilliant people in the world. That's really what your newsroom was like.
That's what it always seems like in my mind. Like the ideal newsroom sort of is like the Superman movies.
Yeah, it was like very much like that. But everything was in the dailies was very, very deadline oriented.
Well, yeah. Talk about a grind.
So when I transitioned to writing for a place like the Nashville Scene, that was very hard for me.
Oh, really? I thought you were going to say it was like luxurious.
No, totally the opposite. Because you have to have a different. It's a much more intense sort of prep work and thinking about the writing and writing with some serious style, which was something I did not know how to do. I was not trained to do that. I actually had to be trained by my former editor, Jim Ridley, who had to show me how to do this. And it took a few years for that to catch on. But I actually found I was always much more proud of what I came up with when I wrote something for a paper like The Scene, but very, very different. And I thought for me more challenging because I'm not a writer's writer. So a writerly writer.
I feel like it's hard to sort of make that judgment about yourself. I feel like the work that I've been the proudest of is, as far as writing goes, the quality of the writing. I never recognize it in the moment. It's always going back and reading something that I had written a few years ago, and I'm like, oh, that's I like the way I described that, or that's something good. I feel like you have to have a little bit of space from the work, especially when you're just driven by a deadline. It never has to. I've heard people say it doesn't have to be great; it just has to be good enough to print. And when you're driven by those quick deadlines, you have to detach a little bit before you can really understand or really appreciate the quality of the work that you're doing.
Yeah. I can see the difference though. Like if I
Really?
were to read the works of a Jim Ridley or a Margaret Renkl or an Ann Patchett, I can say, oh, that's writing. You know, and I look at my stuff and I think, well, that's really good construction. I built that. My paint by number style of doing it is that. Yeah, okay. But there's a difference, and I think that the scene, to me, at its best, is always very writerly.
Agreed. Yeah, and Jim Ridley used to say that something would really sing.
Yeah,
you know, he would use that word as a description of when something was really tight, really well written.
Yeah. We're speaking with Nashville Scene Arts editor Laura Hutson Hunter. We'll be back after this important message.
Spencer Fane Bone McAllister is a strong supporter of arts education. The arts foster creativity and emotional expression. They also enhance communication skills while boosting confidence and collaboration. Students engaged in the arts often perform better academically. They also develop a lifelong appreciation for diverse perspectives. This message is brought to you by Spencer Fane Bone McAllister, a law firm with a passion for the arts. For more information, visit their website at spencerfane.com.
We're back with Nashville Scene Arts editor Laura Hutson Hunter, who's here to talk with us about Music City's vibrant fall art season. As you are indicating, you get to talk to a lot of interesting artists. You get to go to a lot of places. One gripe I hear from artists, though, both veteran artists and new artists here in Nashville, is that a lot of them feel like there's just not enough good places for them to show their work. They really struggle with that. I am not a visual artist. I don't. So I'm not in that world, but I'm wondering, I hear it so much. I'm wondering what's going on and first of all, is that true? And if so, what is the situation?
I don't know. I hear that too, though. I do hear people say that they wish that there were more spaces to show. But then, of course, there are every place where there's a wall, you can show your art. You can put up you can organize an art show wherever there's a space to hang the work. But it does seem like I hear people are hungry for more. And it does feel like a place like the Frist Art Museum or Cheekwood or these bigger institutions do have to sort of carry that weight of being not the only games in town, but just a few, one of a few of those spaces. So I feel like, a lot of people want to show their work in Nashville. And there are new places coming up all the time. People are getting creative. I was at a dinner party a few nights ago, and some people were talking about some new restaurants that are opening up and wanting to get in touch with the owner of the restaurant about seeing if he needed any art on the walls, anything there. There are a lot of different ways that I think artists are coming up with places to show their work. But yeah, they do want that kind of pedigree, and people are coming to Nashville for the creative community, for the art, whether it's music or I don't know, whatever. It's a very visual city, I think, and I feel like there are new places that are going to be coming up. It just seems like that must be something that, I don't know, there's room for it for sure.
Yeah. And there are new places. I'm always hearing of some place I had not visited before or heard of before. I had never been to Modfellows until like a week or two ago.
That place is great. There's also, there's always underground places that I am reluctant to speak about or to write about because sometimes publicity is not what you want as a art institution, as an artist. If it is, a place that's not up to code, or maybe the famous story of the I don't know if it's that famous, but anecdotally famous story of The Fugitive getting shut down, this art organization that was around in the, I think, mid-2000s, early 2000s,
Right.
that was shut down after a scene cover story. Like it was written about as this is the place to come see art in Nashville right now. The openings are crazy. Everyone is making really amazing work. You guys have to come see. And then the fire marshals showed up like the day after the publication.
Right.
And then more recently, there's David Henri Anderson has a DIY space called the Electric Shed, and he got into some trouble about hosting public events there when it wasn't like up to code with public things, and so he just quit publicizing it and said that was just like, this is just friends coming over. And it's, I don't know. So there's definitely conversations that I feel like need to happen.
I think that is so interesting, though. Just the idea of we're going to have to be really DIY now because, we're not up to code.
Oh, right. Oh, yeah. I know. I mean, it's like, but I think that the city, hopefully the city has sort of learned its lesson. Maybe not, now that I think about it. But, hopefully, I think that we all want Nashville to be a place where artists come, because that's why people want to be in Nashville, right?
Yeah. It's the Nashville effect. So, well, are there any art gallery or art museum haunts that you especially like? Where would people likely find Laura Hutson Hunter hanging out?
Oh, that's a good
watching,
question.
looking at art, because we all have our favorite places.
Right. Yeah. I love seeing a place much like this place where it's a little bit unexpected to be able to see, this like fantastic Picasso piece in like an old house,
Yeah.
a historic mansion like this. I love to see places or art in places that are unexpected. But, I love the Frist Art Museum. I think what they do is really, it's really difficult to be able to pull that off. Being able to have such broad appeal to so many people at once. And just to have like maybe 3 exhibits at a time, 4 exhibits, I guess, if you count the community gallery, which I do. I think some of the best Frist some of the best exhibits in Nashville have been in that opening hallway leading into the Frist Center. One of the first exhibits that I ever wrote about for the Nashville scene was at Cheekwood, was a video art exhibition that was in, I think it was the very first exhibit that I ever wrote about, the very first piece I ever wrote about in the scene. And it was in that old carriage house.
Oh, yeah.
That was at Cheekwood. Do you remember this?
Yes.
Yeah, they had it was like horse stalls that would come in, and they were perfectly sized for a small personal viewing of a piece of video art. Wow. And it was Paul McCarthy and Mike Kelly, Ryan Trecarton, and Kara Walker. And I mean, it was just this really sort of, I don't know if I would say it was avant-garde, but it was very, very current. It was very, it was the kind of work that you would see in any major city, but you wouldn't see it in a horse stall in a major city.
Right.
And that made it feel special, and that made it feel more radical, I think, because you were able to see it. You weren't at, the Lower East Side or something. You were at this beautiful historic mansion. Mm-hmm. And yeah.
We're speaking with Nashville Scene Arts editor Laura Hutson Hunter. We'll be back after this important message.
Spencer Fane Bone McAllister understands that the arts help build well-rounded communities. They foster creativity and understanding. They also bring people together through shared experiences and support for local identity. Art programs promote education, economic growth, and emotional well-being. Interested in expanding your own creative horizons? Check out the Mac's website at monthavenarts.org.
We're back with Nashville Scene Arts editor Laura Hutson Hunter, who's here to talk with us about Music City's vibrant fall art season. You came out with a terrific fall guide in September in the scene.
Thank you.
Loved it. I was especially excited to see a feature on an exhibit at Mod Fellows that features our own regional director, Ruth Chase. She has some work there. And I am wondering, that's my recommendation, Mod Fellows and Ruth Chase. But do you have any other shows that are going on this fall that are exciting you that you would be interested in recommending?
Well, the show that was on the cover of that fall guide is the New African Masquerades. That's at the Frist Art Museum, and that one is a fantastic entree into, what is going on in contemporary art in Africa, which is sort of I wouldn't say it was not considered as a major art center, but it is it's such a vast continent, and then in the back room of that exhibit is another show by Atlanta-based artist Fahamu Paku, who is a contemporary painter who does these figurative works that are like really large scale, like urgent, immediate stuff. And it's really cool. It's just sort of like dripping with like hip-hop references and high art references in this way that is really, I think, singular. And he has shown in Nashville before. He showed at the Arts Company way back in 2015 maybe even before that. And he's someone who I've had my eye on for a while.
Okay. You also, in February, had a terrific piece on the Arcade Arts, on that wonderful space on 4th Avenue. What has that sort of new chapter of that organization brought to Nashville that we maybe didn't have before, or that's just perfected now from what they had before?
Right. I think the Arcade is such an interesting architectural space that really it's sort of like like taking a walk around the park, only you're indoors surrounded by like really weird art and also really good art, and then like shops, and they have some of the spaces that they have that they've put in the Arcade in this recent iteration of them have been like some really cool restaurants, Urban Cowboys down there. They have a lot of spaces that are historic to Nashville's sort of identity, like that peanut shop, the shoe shining place, and the spirit that I feel like Nashville offers of collaboration and community, and there's like a very democratic sort of vibe down there that I love. And the Arcade is opening up the upstairs spaces for artists in residence, and they have those spaces, which they're sort of like a hybrid of an art studio. They are an art studio, but they're open. They're open sort of like a shop, or sort of like a workshop. Like you can sort of walk in and walk around and see these artists making this really interesting stuff that you might not be able to see elsewhere.
That's part of Nashville's art history, though, too, isn't it? Wasn't a lot of the stuff that Joe Nolan was writing about in his book Nowville, talking about these places that had these great studios at one time, and you had a lot of your great artists from that period, the 1990s, coming in and creating their own studios. It sort of harkens back to that a little bit, I think.
I think so, too. Yeah, I feel like that Arcade, I'm going to have to go back and reference Joe's book now that I think about it. But I think that the Arcade, one of the first galleries that really made it what it became was Twist Gallery, which Beth Gilmore started, and she was one of the artists in residence at the Downtown Presbyterian Church, which still has this sort of storied artist residencies, this studio community that's there. and they really work well with each other and sort of become almost like a little family, because there's not as much, from my perspective at least, I don't see as much competition among the artists. There's a lot of like wanting collaboration, wanting to be collaborative, wanting success for other artists across the board, and really wanting to make a space to lift up other artists, you know?
Yeah. Well, I think the thing that struck me about the current crop of residents is just how rich and varied our Nashville artist community is right now. Because there are artists that I either know or know of. I think some of the residents this time include Omari Booker, who's a wonderful, wonderful artist. There's, Leslie Patterson Marks, who's part of just Nashville art history at this point.
Right.
She's just been so important in the last 30 years. But that's what strikes me about it, and what's so important is just having, that kind of public space for them to do their private artwork.
Right. Yeah. And being able to be part of each other's experiences. Yeah. And it really does. I think you're right. There is something about being in that environment that rewards sort of connectivity.
Yeah. Speaking of those artists, can you tell us maybe the names of a couple of artists who you're really into right now, who are doing things that are very interesting to you? And this is not to say that the ones you don't mention you're not equally fascinated with, but just some interesting artist names.
Sure. Well, one thing that I've noticed, it seems like there is an extraordinary amount of really talented photographers who are working in Nashville right now, or in Middle Tennessee, way more than I think that anyone really appreciates. There is my dear friend Benji Russell, Christine Rogers, Vesna Pavlovich. I feel like I could name all of these people who
doesn't Rod Magaha do that kind of stuff?
He does a little bit
from the jazz music point of view.
Yeah, he's fantastic.
I love his stuff.
Yeah, and he was part of the Multiplicity show at the Frist, and I also think he had
I think he was a resident last year.
He was a resident at the Arcade last year. And Stacy Kranitz is a photographer who I'm actually working with her. We're going to be putting a show together next fall in New York of this portfolio that she has of that incorporates the history of photography, Southern poverty, contemporary work, propaganda. It is a really thorough sort of investigation of that. And she is, next week she's on her way to the Pulitzer ceremony to accept the Pulitzer Prize that she just won.
Wow.
For public service. So, and Christine Potter is another photographer who she's gotten a Guggenheim award. Not that winning awards means anything, but it is exceptional how many awards these people have won. And I really,
it represents the quality of what they're doing.
Absolutely,
for sure.
It does. Yeah.
It's just the national quality.
Yeah. A lot of the artists that are making amazing work in Nashville right now also just happen to be women. And that's something that I think, the Frist curators had noticed, and they are organizing an art show. They're organizing an exhibition of all women Nashville artists that's opening in January of 2026. And I co-edited the catalog with Katie Dalmay, the senior curator at the Frist, to sort of introduce these amazing artists to, I think, a bigger arena, and just grace Nashville with with their just talent.
Who are we going to be seeing? Who are some of these artists?
There is Jody Hayes and Karen Siepker, Alicia Henry, the great Alicia Henry, one of my favorite artists ever. Also just happened to be a Nashville-based artist. And Shannon Cartier-Lucy, she's working on a show that is going to be opening in LA at the Night Gallery. And Vadis Turner is making these extraordinary sculptures out of her family home in Gallatin, which was designed by the same architect who designed Johnny Cash's house, which was right across the lake.
Yeah.
And who else? Elisheba, Israel, is going to have a big installation as part of that. Jana Harper. I mean, I think it's 26, 27, 28 artists. I've lost count.
That is going to be amazing. So we'll ask you officially here and now, can we have you and Katie come here in January and do a book signing and an artist talk?
Oh, well.
We would love to have you guys do that.
Oh, I mean, I would love to do that. I'm sure Katie would too. Yeah, that sounds great.
Okay, we're going to take that as a yes.
Do it.
So we're going to start working on the details of that. More to come very soon. We're speaking with Nashville Scene Arts editor Laura Hutson Hunter. We'll be back after this important message.
Spencer Fane Bone McAllister is a strong supporter of arts education. The arts foster creativity and emotional expression. They also enhance communication skills while boosting confidence and collaboration. Students engaged in the arts often perform better academically. They also develop a lifelong appreciation for diverse perspectives. This message is brought to you by Spencer Fane Bone McAllister, a law firm with a passion for the arts. For more information, visit their website at spencerfane.com.
We're back with Nashville Scene Arts editor Laura Hutson Hunter, who's here to talk with us about Music City's vibrant fall art season. Let me shift a little bit to news, if you don't mind, because I know that another big part of the tradition of the scene is not just writing about shows that are coming up,
right,
but also reporting the news that's going on behind the scenes. And as somebody who works at an art organization, I'd have to say the last year or so has been challenging. You know, funding has been tight for everybody. I think maybe part of that was during the presidential year, the presidential election, people who might have been donating to arts organizations were instead donating to political campaigns. But Nashville in particular seems to have had its own special and unique sort of chaos going on, especially with the Metro Arts Commission.
Yeah.
And I think they lost a couple of directors over just a few years. I was able to meet one of them, Daniel Singh. He struck me personally as just a nice guy,
yeah, but
who seems to have been devoured by the lions of Nashville. But I've also known other arts people in Nashville, especially those who are running big arts organizations, who have felt really pressured by not getting any of the kind of funding they normally got.
Right.
I was interviewing the director of Nashville Shakespeare Festival a few months ago. They lost a huge amount of money. I mean, like six figures,
right,
in loss. And I'm just wondering what is going on with Metro Arts, and are they going to be able to come back?
I mean, I honestly, your guess is as good as mine. This Metro Arts sort of debacle has been so confounding, and everyone involved seems to have a different take on it or a different story. You know, from what I have heard and what has been reported, there was a plan that was in place to change the funding model of Metro Arts and a sort of a stair-step approach, where it would just like every year there would be more funds would be allocated toward individual artists and fewer toward the bigger institutions, and it was going to eventually taper down. And then when Daniel Singh took over, he felt like there was more of an immediacy, more of an immediate need for there to be some sort of a reckoning there. And one of the artists who I spoke with about it, again, her name's Elisheva Israel. She said that she described it as fighting over scraps. The artists are fighting over scraps right now, like infighting, fighting against each other, artists against artists or artists against arts institutions over this small amount of the budget that should be bigger anyway.
Right.
And it's always difficult because I am, I'm a journalist, but I'm also, I don't know, I'm an observer of this situation less than I am a participant. Mm-hmm. And so I think that while I am a critical analyst of the news that's happening, I also don't have a real stake in it as much as a working artist or someone who is working in an art institution would. And so my perspective is always that you want the government to be as uninvolved in the work that you're doing as possible because you want to be free from, but at the same time, you have to make a living. A person has to make a living. I think that my ideal art would be sort of removed from funding entirely, but that's just not ever going to be the case.
Well, one thing I can say about Tennessee, Tennessee actually surprises me and pleasantly surprises me sometimes in the way it prioritizes things like the arts or education. Mm-hmm. A fairly substantial portion of the Tennessee state budget actually goes to education. And they do provide, the state universities do provide, really excellent opportunities for just the average person to go to college and get a good degree. I'm very, very impressed with the model that the Tennessee Arts Commission has come up with for its funding. I mean, basically you get to buy these specialized license plates.
Right.
And that money then goes to help support the arts. So in that respect, it almost takes politics a little bit and government a little bit out of the equation.
Right.
It's like you're making a donation.
Right.
You're paying more to support the arts. And I think that's actually been a very successful model and one that I would encourage other states to look at.
Absolutely. And it's a question of trust too. It's like, does the administration, does the government, these big funding agencies, do they trust us to disperse this money the way that is the best for this community?
Yeah. And I guess this whole question of, well, where should Metro Arts money go? Should it go to individual artists or should it go to Shakespeare Fest?
Right.
Which hires, a dozen actors.
Right.
Where is it better spent? And I guess that's sort of an inevitable argument to have in this day and age where everything is so, the internet and everything else and social media has democratized everything. We're all our own creators and content makers and critics. And why do we need a gatekeeper like the Frist or the Symphony to, provide us with art when we can just do it ourselves? Let's just give it all to the individual artist.
Yeah. I mean, that's my perspective. I love a gatekeeper. I love trusting someone else's discernment when it comes to those kinds of things. I don't know. I like a critic. I like a curator to sort of surprise me. I don't want to tell you what I want to see. I want to be surprised by it.
I totally agree with you. I think my concern about just the individual artist approach, I think there should be plenty of that. I think there should be plenty of both. We just need to spend more money on the arts.
Absolutely.
I'm in favor of being more like France. Why do we have these politicians and presidents on our money? I want to have, Louis Armstrong on my money.
Right.
George O'Keeffe on my quarter. That's right. What I mean. I'm more that way. But in the case of the individual artist getting the money versus an arts organization, there's kind of, it's great to give it to the individual artist, but there's kind of a one and done kind of quality to that as well.
Right.
Whereas if you're giving it to one of the other arts organizations, they're not just curating or gatekeeping, they're creating an ecosystem that all the other artists can then participate in,
right?
And it creates jobs. It creates creative jobs. Those creative jobs then attract creative people who are currently living in Illinois or New York or California to all come here.
Right.
My youngest son is a pianist, and he's studying at Berklee College of Music in Boston. Mm-hmm. And I look at the Berklee parent page on Facebook, and the question from the parents, because these kids come from literally all over the world.
Of course, yeah.
But the question is, where should my kid go after graduation? Should they go to LA or Nashville? So, Nashville is in the running.
Yeah.
It is the big, 25, almost all of the growth in pop music in the last 25 years has happened not in LA or New York or London. It's happened here,
right,
in Nashville. So why is all that happening? And a lot of that's because we have an ecosystem.
Right.
And that's what those arts organizations create. And it's like, you have a great symphony. I remember Steve Cavendish some years ago, now the Nashville Banner, founding editor. He'd been a big time scene editor at one time. Mm-hmm. During one of those times one of those many times the Nashville Symphony is about to go under. It's always about to go under. Was asking, does Nashville really need to have a great orchestra?
Right.
And it's kind of like, well, probably not, but like any more than any other place, But if you do have a great orchestra, what does that mean? It means that great musicians from all over the world now suddenly want to live here.
Yes. As
as opposed to just going to LA or New York.
Right.
So to me, if there's any reason to support some of these arts organizations, it's because it just makes us a better place to be.
Right. And it's because of what they offer the individual artists.
Right.
Because you can't, create a great ballet and not have a place to put it on.
Right. Laura, I'm so glad that we have solved this problem for everybody.
Yeah.
So obviously we should just run Metro Arts.
Absolutely. Oh my God.
Oh no, I know they wouldn't. We wouldn't last 10 minutes if I were to run it. So cut that one.
Yeah.
I appreciate you spending so much time with us, but let me ask you at least one more question. I want to ask you, because you're best known, I guess, as a writer and editor, but you're also a curator.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And you are a very artsy person in general. Tell me about Laura Hutson Hunter, the curator.
Oh, well, I love. Curating has really been a passion of mine from the beginning. I have always felt like I wanted to be surrounded by as much interesting, sort of button pushing, provocative, thought provoking work that I can that is possible. Curating is a way that I am able to do that, to bring a bunch of things that I really love and have them all work in a conversation with each other. And after living in Nashville for a while, I found myself wanting there to be more of a conversation around work that felt a little bit more adult, I guess, in idea than what was available at the time. In a city like Nashville, things need to be, I don't know exactly why, but it feels like the infrastructure is set up so that works are all, family friendly, relatively family friendly, G-rated, maybe PG every once in a while, but nothing that would be that would upset the public being able to come through and experience the art. People really don't want to have any sort of boundaries or barricades between the audience and the art. And sometimes content can be a barricade. Sometimes things are only meant for people who are 18 and older, or have interest in certain sort of niche subcultures. And so I created an exhibition series for sex-forward art, contemporary art, that it was really fun to put together. It feels in much the same way that looking at sort of an avant-garde contemporary art, contemporary video art in Cheekwood's horse stalls. Mm-hmm. Sometimes seeing some of Thornton Dial, some of his more erotic nudes,
mm-hmm.
you know, in a Nashville, in a space like Nashville, it feels kind of radical in a way that I appreciate.
Yeah. Well, when you were talking about that, one of the first ideas is totally different from what you're curating. But I just started thinking about what a place like Ozarts Nashville mm-hmm. suddenly brings to Nashville, because they're like putting on like dance performances mm-hmm. that you literally wouldn't see anywhere else unless
right.
you were to go to New York.
Yeah, I mean,
and stuff that's really pushing the envelope and making you think in ways that are not always comfortable. Mm-hmm. But I think any great art city needs that component to it.
Right. And Oz is a great example. I mean, they have brave in their name. I mean, in mm-hmm. their tagline.
Yeah.
It's brave new art. Like that is their mission. And I think that you can't have great art without a little bit of risk.
Yeah.
Sometimes a lot of risk. And a place that is safe enough for that kind of experimentation to happen.
Right.
I think is really important.
Right.
And yeah, the show that just premiered at Oz, the U.S. premiere, is leaving Oz Arts and going to the Joyce Theater. You know. So New York is its second stop.
I know, one of my all-time favorite theaters, mm-hmm. where my friend Garth Fagan used to always do his residency. Well, you know what? I really appreciate your being here.
This has been so
I've
fun.
got to give you one more sort of
okay.
shameless commercial here. You've got this book coming out. It's called In Her Place, correct?
Right. Yeah.
Okay, and the show is going to be in January?
January
at the Frist?
29th it opens at the Frist Art Museum.
Okay, and you're going to have a book that goes with that. So, and you're going to be back here to plug it. And we're so excited about that. Well, Laura Hutson Hunter, arts editor of the Nashville Scene, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Great.
You've been listening to Mac Talk from Mott Haven Arts and Cultural Center. Our mission is to educate, elevate, and encourage our community through the transformative power of the arts. If you're interested in transforming your creative life, check out our website at motthavenarts.org. Our guest today was Nashville Scene Arts editor Laura Hutson Hunter. Our podcast music was written by Nashville composer Christina Spinay. I'm Kennedy Galpin. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.